Hello, everyone. Hello. I know there's been a lot that's been happening in the last week. I honestly thought about making a script for this video, but I feel like it's better just to freehand it, kind of come from the dome, right? Be as authentic as I can be. I think we're at a crossroads right now. We as the community hold a very powerful position. It's clear that Gaijin is feeling the pressure, and they're scrambling to rectify some of it. But they've only been half measures. And as Mike from Breaking Bad said, no half measures. And I want to make my intentions absolutely clear. My intentions were to stop this game from stagnating and overall make a better experience for all the players, including myself. I'm very passionate about War Thunder. It's my job. I'm also trying to protect my job. So when I made that video, it was not to stir up some drama. It was not to be an alarmist. It was purely to open up a conversation to stop the mediocrity and the slow decline. Whether you agree or disagree with that video or how it was presented is totally up to you, and it's okay if you do. I'm going to touch on that later. Throughout this video, I'm going to try my absolute best to clarify a lot of the points and reunify the community with one goal. Make War Thunder a game that's fun to play. And one thing I do want to clarify is I was very passionate in that video. I made a lot of strong arguments. And I might have been a bit too passionate. I'm so involved with War Thunder and I was so upset with how the game was being treated that I angrily made that video. And this video is kind of a way to look at it more neutrally and clarify a couple of points. My frustration is not only in Gaijin, but in the community. I think there's some important things that you and I have in our control that we can really help sway the battle. The video that I made did exactly what I wanted it to do, is to start a conversation. This has been done before time and time again by various YouTubers, but I feel we have a genuine movement. I've never seen so many creators in the community united against something better, but we have to remain mature and make the right decisions. And that's what this video is about. What is the right decision here? What can we do as a community to improve the game? First off, I just want to clarify some stuff really quickly so that we can get on with the video. One of the main talking points I saw was that I had ulterior motives. As a YouTuber, I needed to make money, and I found a quick cash grab. While YouTube is my job, and I do make money off my videos, I also need to pay my editors. This was not a video made for some quick cash where I just threw it away in the universe, said what I needed to say, and get on with my life. I put a considerable amount on the line. I put my 3% decal on the line, because I genuinely felt that that stuff needed to be said. My 3% decal is a considerable percent of my income. I would be losing out about 25% of my overall income. That's how strongly I felt. It's definitely a decent chunk of change. All of that opportunity and all of my standing with Gaijin for a quick buck. Ultimately, I could have kept my mouth shut and made more money playing the game and plugging my decal. But that felt ingenuine by how poor the game actually felt. Now, I'm not calling out other creators for plugging in their decal. I'm very lucky in the fact that I have a pretty high view count, so therefore, a lot of my costs is offset by how much money I make per view. Other creators, especially smaller ones, don't have the same luxury, so they're more reliant off their decal. I totally understand that. So please don't be hating creators for plugging their decal. They're just trying to make a buck and trying to feed their families just how I am. Ultimately, the first priority of that video was not to make money. It was to start a conversation about the slow decline of a game I loved. Okay, with that out of the way, I want to talk about one of the most important things that I've seen and I'm kind of disappointed in. Everyone has a different opinion if Gaijin's doing the right thing or not, or if the game is dying. But I think one thing we can't disagree on is how toxic the community is. Think of this from Gaijin's perspective. I guess this is a lesson on empathy, right? If you're a developer, and you have hundreds of thousands of people all saying different things, all being extremely toxic and upset at you, are you willing to make changes to make the community happy? I mean, we look at the history, the War Thunder community is impossible to please. That's where the word compromise comes in. I think it's completely unrealistic to expect 100% of what we're asking for to be put in the game. But if Gaijin starts listening to us and starts communicating with us openly and even adds only 10 to 20% of what we're asking for, that's a compromise I'm willing to settle for. And I think a lot of people share that same thought process. So as long as we can compromise with Gaijin and Gaijin can compromise with us, I think we will have a genuinely wonderful game. But I've been really disappointed in how the War Thunder community in a whole has been treating other players. Other players they disagree with, the way they talk in game chat, and the way they talk on the forums. And I'm not gonna lie, I'm guilty of it too. In my first video, one of the most important points that I made was to keep it respectful, because we don't want to be an enemy of Gaijin. We want to close the gap between the developers and the communities. I think if we close that gap, and this is a two-way street where Gaijin communicates with us more openly, and we accept their communication openly. They did a wonderful first step by adding some forum posts clarifying some of the decisions that they made. That's a wonderful first step, and we should definitely applaud them. Whether the response was half-baked or genuine is a different question entirely. But you can't deny that seeing them communicate is a great first step. That means they're starting to listen. What we have to do as a community is request more communication, stand up for ourselves, and ultimately have a more constructive conversation and be more receptive of Gaijin. Gaijin is not our enemy right now. They are making some bad decisions, and I think they're not putting as much effort as they possibly could. But there is some good quality of life features that are updates. Not every update is negative. So ultimately, we need to be better as a community, hold ourselves to a higher standard, and communicate in a more objective, composed, and neutral manner. Taking your hate out on the developers is not a way to fix the game. And I want to be perfectly clear with that. And I'm sorry that my video did not specify that more clearly. I was angry and upset, so I wanted to make it clear now. And I want to briefly touch on some of the opinions that I have changed after having some constructive criticism with some other members. There have been some excellent videos come out by large and small creators alike, some of them having differing opinions. I think having a different opinion is a wonderful and healthy way of solving a problem, because you're able to see different perspectives. One of the perspectives that I saw that made me realize I might have been wrong is the fact that copy-paste premiums isn't the worst thing in the world. And I'll elaborate before you yell at me. Essentially, you have two options. You can have unique premiums that are locked behind a paywall, aka the F14D, or we can have copy-paste premiums that are already in tech trees. In a perfect world, I would like to have no copy-paste ever. But if I had to choose between having unique vehicles locked behind a paywall or having copy-paste vehicles locked behind a paywall that are optional to buy, I would much rather have the optional one. That allows the unique vehicles like the F14D, which should have been in the tech tree, to go in the tech tree, and it allows players to fill out their lineups so that top tier games last longer. As long as the premium vehicles are balanced, I don't see a problem with that. So I do want to backtrack on that. Second, and I think this is really important, I'm very sorry for you naval players. I should have specified what I meant by delete naval. I wanted to say delete naval in the current state. And this sentiment is agreed upon by thousands of other War Thunder players. You look at the naval queues and how many people are playing naval, and the fact that there are bots in almost every match, and you can't disagree that people just don't want to play naval. Not because they don't like boats, but more simply because they don't care. It's just not made well. I'm not changing my opinion about infantry though. I think infantry is genuinely a really lazy cash grab and just another tree to grind out. And it's not fleshed out well. It's really not fleshed out well, at least in the current state that it is. Maybe my opinion will change if they flesh it out. I don't necessarily fault Gaijin for making copy-paste premiums. I guess my main point is premiums are not inherently evil. Companies need to make money, especially if it's a free-to-play game. I get that. I think I just want a more healthy balance between premiums and non-premiums. And I don't want any more hyped vehicles locked behind a paywall, a $80 paywall, mind you. And that's a totally separate thing, the fact that we've been having inflation of premiums instead of copy-paste. And that kind of falls into another one. I think you guys know Trooper on TikTok. He was famous or infamous, I guess, depending on your opinion on him. But he recently made a video on TikTok dispelling some of the community-driven points. And I want to use his video as a specific example of how my opinions can change, and how changing your opinion isn't necessarily a bad thing. And finally, I want to use this video as a way to restructure our argument, because he uses a lot of counter-arguments the rest of the community holds. Note, please do not harass this individual or do not say anything to him. These are my own talking points, and I'm respectfully agreeing or disagreeing with him. One of his points was, every June, the game decreases in players because people graduate, school's out, and summer started, right? Everyone's outside. People just don't want to stay inside and play video games. While I agree with that, I think this year's particularly bad with an extremely lackluster update followed by negative community sentiment that is driving a lot more dissatisfaction and disinterest in the game. And that's why I made the video. It's been one of the sharpest drop-offs in June to this year with one of the lowest player counts. So while it is normal, I think this one is exceedingly sharp and a sign to be concerned about. Number 2, he said that we have gotten new game modes, which technically we have, but they were mostly lackluster and we haven't seen them in months. He used Bullet Hell, for example, which we haven't seen in a very long time, and it was a limited game mode. What I'm talking about is a more standardized game mode that is available all the time. And not to mention Nuclear Thunder, which was one of War Thunder's most successful game modes when it came on April 1st. They ruined it in the second week and took it away, but they brought it back. But unfortunately, they brought it back in probably one of the worst states ever. And I'm concerned about this because Gaijin might use this as an excuse to say, well, the community's begging us for new game modes, but no one's actually playing them, so we're not actually going to focus on that. Everyone's playing the main game. Yes, it's not, they're not playing it because they're not interested in it. They're playing it because you locked them behind top tier, number 1, broke the game mode, number 2, and ruined the balance. I mean, if you think about it, when you played Nuclear Thunder, you could play with all of your friends. You could play with someone who had 1.0 Italy, right? Because you got free loadouts and you got free vehicles, which I think was a wonderful step. I don't know why they took it away. I think if they included that back, that would be so much more fun. And plus, there's some stuff about the Silver Lions in the game mode and just the balance overall in the AA. It's not in a good state. They somehow, this is such a Gaijin thing to do. They took something great and they ruined it. And I'm not sure how. But that's my biggest concern, at least now. They're going to use that as an excuse to say, well, we put all this effort in and you guys didn't actually play it. You guys are ungrateful, and therefore we're just not going to make any more. And you'll see some upcoming videos about that. There are some things that some creators are in the works for, and they're creating their own community game modes. Again, I think Gaijin, there's a lot of potential with allowing community members to create and post their own game modes, and you be able to get Silver Lions and XP from it. I think that would be incredible. There's obviously some issues with that, but I think it would be a step in the right direction. At the very least, Gaijin could hire some people that are experienced in the CDK to flush out some own game modes, and they don't even have to lift a finger. And I think one of the points I disagree with him the most is where he started talking about we should actually be lucky because War Thunder could be a subscription service or a paid game. To play this game competitively in top tier, you kind of need to have a subscription. It's called premium. You're paying premium for a subscription. Obviously, it's optional, but I think almost everyone who watches this video has had premium before in their lifetime. You've already paid money into it. I don't agree with that. And number 2, he said the game could easily cost $80 as a AAA title while he was flying a $80 premium, which is a single vehicle. So I think he's a bit out of touch in that aspect. And I think it ultimately comes down to complacency. I think it comes down to people are complacent with the state of the game, and they don't realize that this game could be so much more. I mean, we have, again, my original talking points, we have some of the most detailed models and some of the most intuitive controls in a military game. There's none other quite like it, all to be thrust in a Call of Duty death-style domination. It is like putting the Mona Lisa in the bathroom of a Cumbies. There's so much potential, but you're not allowed to see it. I do think they are having a step in the right direction, and I don't think we can blame Gaijin for all of this. Again, I think the community and the negativity is definitely for it. And ultimately, my intentions and my goal for the video that I made was not to grab attention or money or anything. That was not the first priority. My goal was to start a discussion and to spark some ideas in your own head. I think the most healthy form of discussion is someone brings up some talking points and you as an individual agree, disagree, or think for yourself to form ultimately your own opinion. I don't want you to blindly follow my opinion and say what I think is right, because it's not, because I've already changed a couple of my opinions. It is to spark a discussion and to unify the community to what we really want. And I think a lot of people just want the game to be more fun. I think a lot of people have thought the game is pretty stale,
And I think a lot of people want some new, fresh game modes and to feel more immersed. I think ultimately people want to feel less like this game is made to make as much money as possible in the short amount of time, and more so this game is driven by passion with the side effect of making money. Every game needs to make money. I get that. But it feels lately as if this game is trying to make as much money as possible, as quickly as possible, without taking into account the community satisfaction or dissatisfaction with the state of the game. That's the biggest thing Gaijin needs to change. One thing I did agree with Trooper on, premiums aren't inherently terrible. He said, the grind is tough nowadays. Compared to me when I started out 13 years ago, it would probably take a maximum of 1 month to get to your first jet. Now it takes serious dedication, and a lot of people want to play shiny new toys. So I get that. I think that's not a terrible thing. I think we just need to have a more healthy balance between premiums and non-premiums. And I definitely don't want to see a ton of copy-paste tech tree vehicles in spots that you don't need to fill. I think Dollar made a wonderful point with this, where he talked about how some of the copy-paste vehicles are inevitable, where there's a gap in the tech tree. But, for example, why does Germany need the M44 when the Hummel is there? Thankfully, we've had the Hummel, but now, unfortunately, you can't exactly remove the M44. So now you're stuck fighting the same vehicle, grinding past it, and artificially increasing the grind. Now, this is a completely separate side note, but I'm recording this after, and I just want to make it clear that, like, while this update was pretty lackluster in terms of vehicles, and it was extremely heavy on the premium side, there wasn't all bad. There was some quality of life updates. That means Gaijin at least somewhat listening to us. Yeah, the biggest thing was, and I know my ARB players are rejoicing right now, is now you can get credit for a maneuver kill, and someone can't be petty and just slam into the ground to deny you a kill anymore. That's an excellent change. That's an amazing quality of life update. But I think it's just not enough. I think there needs to be a ton more. Not to mention, there's 1,000 new bugs for every update. I mean, what is the dev server even for? The quality control is awful. And Spookston, made a recent video. I watched it all. I thought it was excellent. He does a much better job of those types of videos than I do. And he made some wonderful points. I briefly touched on some of them in mine. Like, for example, I think one of his main points was that the game is not friendly for new players, right? You got Smurfs, you have all this complex machinery, you have all this complexity in the game, and I do agree with him there. I think there needs to be more comprehensive tutorials. There needs to be a separate matchmaker system for anyone level 10 or 15 and below, and I think that would help out. I really do think that would help out. We need some new maps, we need some better maps, and I think one of their major things is they somehow make the new maps worse. Every time, like whenever they do the hashing, or whenever they make the new maps, they somehow make them worse, which I don't understand. Without changing anything, they just make it better visually. But the maps weren't really good to begin with, there's nothing better, right? So we don't know what's better. There's like 3 maps that I like in the game. Everything else is like, ugh. But my personal opinion, a lot of the maps suck, and a lot of creators agree with me, and a lot of people, veteran players who agree with me, say the same thing. One of the biggest problems I think in War Thunder right now is a lot of it is on us. We're very quick to call out Gaijin's bullshit and get really mad. But then again, I looked at my summer sales, and I hit record numbers with my decal. There's a massive disconnect there, and that makes Gaijin super unwilling to listen, because why would they listen when they're still making a ton of money? And so the thing I think happens there is, you go into any squadron chats and Discord, any veteran players, you talk to them, they hold very similar stances on the game, right? They're dissatisfied with the premiums, they're dissatisfied with the gameplay loop. There's so much potential, blah, 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 blah. But if you look and you do a little bit of research, Gaijin's marketing has become extraordinarily aggressive. There's a massive influx of new players, right? And that's because of their major sponsors, their targeted advertising. Whatever you say, you look at these advertising, it shows the cool new vehicles, and of course little Timmy, who doesn't watch any content on the game, isn't in the community at all, downloads the game, plays it, realizes he has to grind, says, Mom, could I buy the $80 F-18? She says sure, because it's his birthday. He buys the F-18, and now he has to not only learn how to play the game, but he has to learn radar, he has to learn how to notch, he has to learn what the flare button is, he has to manage energy. He gets overwhelmed, complicated, quits the game. Now he paid $80, and the cycle continues. So you see there, so there's this toxic cycle in War Thunder where new players come in, they buy a $80 premium, they get frustrated, they quit, and then War Thunder spends money on the sponsorships. And the cycle repeats. So ultimately, it really comes down to educating your friends, not saying don't buy these premiums, but educating your friends and people who are newer to the game and telling them, hey, think about it real quick. Do you want to spend this money? This is how the game is. You don't realize it until you're kind of there, but just be careful. And ultimately, it comes down to us being more wise with our wallet. I am guilty of it too. I spent, before I got in the content creator program, I probably spent $600 over the course of my 10 years. I loved buying the premiums. But I like, you know, because I was addicted to the game. I loved the game, and I wanted that unique vehicle. I wanted to make the grind faster, right? And I think there's a balance there. I'm not saying spending money on the game is evil, but I think spending money kind of where your tier's at, maybe slightly above, and just enjoying the game more, and it's less about the grind and more about enjoying, kind of makes you realize, oh, you don't really need that premium. You don't need that dopamine loop. I guess the main points of this video is we need to become less toxic, we need to stay mature, stop sending mixed signals, and we need to compromise. We're ultimately not going to get everything we ask for. And I think even if we get 20% of what we're asking for, that is a wonderful sign. That means Gaijin is taking the community seriously and making the game in a lot better state. I genuinely think if Gaijin works really hard, a new experience for the player, a lot of people will spend money because they feel like the game is being taken seriously and addressing the faults instead of just ignoring us and dumping another $80 premium. I think closing the gap between the developers and the community is an excellent way. And I think the creators are kind of in a unique space there because we do have influence. And again, I don't hate Gaijin. I was very angry in that video because I'm so passionate about the game. I played the game for 13 years. Hell, it's my job. It would be stupid for me not to be passionate about it. But I definitely should have addressed things sooner. This whole video could have been avoided if I spent an extra week instead of being motivated by anger and emotion and looking at it objectively. So for that, I do apologize. To finish up, I don't think I want to make another video like this, but I definitely encourage other creators to keep making videos. I am definitely not the community leader a lot of you guys have been saying in the comments. That is not my sort of style. I don't like to be surrounded in drama, and I prefer to maintain positivity on my channel. I just felt like I could use my influence for good and guide the game in a better state. Whether you agree or disagree with my points is totally up to you, and it's okay to have different opinions, but one of my biggest points is we have to be respectful about it. One of the whole reason War Thunder hasn't gotten any traction is if you disagree with anyone in the War Thunder space, it's immediate childish name-calling instead of actually going by the points. So I think the community should work actively in their interpersonal skills and recognize that we're all going for the same goal, and different opinions are okay. It's not a direct attack at you, and it is okay to be wrong. I was wrong, and I corrected myself. I was wrong in front of 300,000 people, and I corrected myself, right? It is okay to be wrong. I think one of the best traits someone could have is know when they're wrong and admit it. And sometimes I don't. I'm human. Humans are complex creatures. Let's be more positive, and let's be more clear with our communication. I think the survey Gaijin does is a step in the right direction. What they actually do with it is totally up to them. At the end of the day, this is Gaijin's game, so they have full control over whether if they want to or not to implement the changes a lot of people have suggested. Thank you guys for watching. I appreciate all the people who have supported me, and for those who don't, that is okay. All I ask is you remain respectful. I hope I gave you guys some extra clarity and gave you guys some fuel to go with. Again, don't spread hate on any other creators, and don't spread hate on the devs. I know everyone's upset and angry, but use that to fuel a more productive conversation. Thank you so much for watching, and I hope you enjoy the next video.